Good morning, all. I am Dr. Udayakumar from School of Humanities, National Institute of Advanced Studies, Bangalore, India. I'm so glad to present my experimental research on pottery making techniques, iron smelting process, and bone tool making techniques in 14th Experiment World Archaeological Conference. Experiment archaeology is a subfield of archaeological research which employs a number of different methods, techniques, analysis, approach within the context of controllable imitative experiment replicate past phenomena from object to system in order to generate and test hypotheses to provide or enhance analogical for archaeological interpretation. Doing experiment archaeology, we need two major data collections of archaeological data and ethnoarchaeological data. Without these two data collection, there will not be any impact or understanding of experimental archaeology. In this talk, I have focused three major technology which was used in the past: experiment of pottery techniques, experiment of bone tool making techniques, experiment of iron smelting process. Experimental study of pottery making techniques. This research is not to replicate a particular archaeological time span of pottery making, is to understand the methods and techniques of pottery making. The main aim to understand the pottery of making pottery, such as clay preparation, drying the clay, burnishing the clay pottery, and firing the pottery. In my experimental research, clay preparation is done for removing the impurities and kneading clay properly. I have done experiment of handmade pottery and wheel-made pottery. In this research, my main aim to understand the method of burnishing the pottery of different clay from different region and different region moisture temperature too. Burnishing. Burnishing is considered as a repeatedly rubbing a hard tool against a slip or non-slip paste with a dry or leather dry to dry hydrometry. The aim is to make it shine and compact. Preheating the fire pit or open kiln to remove the moisture. Arrange the pottery in fire pit or open kiln to avoid the breakage of the pottery. Firing the pottery. Left picture shows without burnishing and right picture shows with burnishing. Observation of pottery techniques through experimental work. Preparation of clay plays a very important role in pottery making. If there's a small particles of impurities in the clay, then the pottery will not bring a desired shape and there will be a breakage during the firing of the pottery. As concerned to the burnishing, burnishing can done only at specified moisture temperature or leather hot condition. The timing of burnishing will differ from each regional clay and clay mixing. Arrangement of pottery into the kiln and base of pottery should not be thick. Then there is a chance of breakage during the course of firing. Direct and indirect firing methods of pottery. Experimental research of experimental study of iron smelting process in primary sources. As concerned to the metal technology, in general at archaeological sites, we find the base of furnace, broken part of the furnace, tubes in different size and shapes, slags and charcoals. In metal technology, as divided into two processes, primary process, that is smelting process, and secondary process is forging and smelting process. In this talk, I'll focus on only the primary process, that is smelting process. Before entering into the iron smelting process, we need to have a proper base that is called literature sources. We need to have enough knowledge of literature sources that helps us to understand the iron smelting or experiment of iron smelting process, which previous scholars have done. So it should not be overlapping with the previous scholars' experimental archaeology. So for that, I have gone through previous works like Rakesh Tiwari 2030. The site is the site is in UP districts in India. We have soft furnace. Then we have evidence of pot from Iswal in Rajasthan. The site was escaped by Professor Pandey and Professor Vasa Shinden. Smelting is a process of applying a heat to ore in order to extract a base metal. The iron smelting process is a blast furnace, is a heat and mass transfer process, and the furnace can be divided into different zones according to the physical and chemical state of feeding and temperature. The technological signification of these findings will be discussed through experimental studies. The main aim of this and smelting process in traditional way to understand the skill of smith, to investigate the labor requirement, to analyze the time taken for smelting process, to study the scientific analysis of smelting iron slags from experimental work and archaeological data. Methods used in different fine smelting process. In case of experimental archaeology of material culture, we need different methods of each material. Like pottery, we have different methods of making. For iron is different method of making, and copper different method of making. So this method is not a standard. We need to, as our experimental archaeologists, we need to develop the methods for achieving the technology. So data collection, literature sources and previous work, core collection and preparation, collection of clay, preparation of TUs, smelting process and scientific results. So data collection, like I have gone through a experiment of iron smelting of international level, like national level by John, by experimental archaeology, by experiment and different scholars. As concerned to the archaeological data of the study, what I did. So core collection, the site is named called Udayakumar. It's located in Southeast Rajasthan. It's an early historic to medieval period. Here in this site, the site was excavated by late Professor Pradeep Pandey and Professor Vashar Shinde from Deccan College in 2006 to 10. Here mostly we get hematite ore are collected from Udayakumar. After collecting the iron ore from the ancient mines, the iron ore has to be crushed into tiny pieces as much as possible before smelting process. So unless until the iron ore is not crusted, it is a lump. If we charge into the furnace, it will never get smelted. So we need to make as a fine grain of iron ores and divide the impurities. And second, collecting the clay. We need to understand the clay composition, how the clay going to be tolerate almost 1800 degrees Celsius. The sustain of clay we need to understand. So we need to mix of two clays, red soil and black soil. I did in my experiment. Apart from, we need to have a proper understanding of how to make a TUS. It's very simple. With a wooden rod, we get to fill the clay around the wooden rod. After 5 minutes or 10 minutes, we need to remove slowly the wooden rod. So you will get a hollow of TUS. And in my first experiment, I have data from the archaeological assemblages with the measurements which excavator has given. I started to build the furnace. So first I marked the circle, then start to a small pit depth of 1 centimeter, then started to make a furnace wall with the mixture of rice husk and other ingredients. So with the measurements, I could understand how the height of the furnace can be. It is like almost height is 63 centimeters and 8 centimeter thickness and the TUS and outlet for slag. So another one interesting aspects when I was doing the first experiment, I could not find the leather bellow. So I made sure myself I should not use any machinery item. So I tried to make my own bellow with the tire tubes, such things. So then of charging the iron ore. So we need to charge the iron ore and charcoal in the simultaneously in the layer wise. If you charge everything together, it will never get melted. So it will be a layer wise. So time has to be recorded, completely documented should be done. And breaking the furnace again after 8 hours of smelting of 5 kg of iron ore, I could get a very tiny rough iron. So I'm trying to compare with the archaeological data which is from the Udayakumar from the Rajasthan, from the experiment of iron furnace. So it's going correlated, and even the base of the furnace. So once you clear about the experiments, when you go for the field, so it is easy to understand the archaeological landscape of the technological sites. And in second experiment, same pattern I have done. Here the base I didn't make a pit. because the first experiment I have made a pit while charging, it has choked in the bottom. So to avoid the chokeness, so I made a flat and plastered with the red soil and started to have a two outlet for two bellows and one outlet for slag. So in second experiment, I could get a leather bellows from central India, of central India. So there's a community still they make a bellows. So I could get the leather bellows and started to doing second experiment. So in second experiment, I have charged almost 10 to 15 kg of iron ore. It started to melt it, and I could get almost 2 kg of rough iron. And even I used the broken furnace. And in second experiment, I tried to understand the gender value, gender impact. So one of my helping person, a Lakshmi person, she tried to below that. It's almost per minute. It's 72 strokes she can do it. So there's a chance of female as involved in iron smelting process. And third experiment, I did a double furnace. So simultaneously, how we can handle the two furnaces and preheating the furnaces. So such things we need to observe through experiment. So third experiment, what I have done, I have tried to understand the bellows making a big problem. So here I purchased bigger bellows. So the several experiment stages was followed to understand the iron technologies of ancient time with the repeated adjustment of position and angle of the bellow. So this bellow is a huge, you need to have a frame of the bellow, measuring the distance from the furnace, arranging the shapes, length of 2 years, adjusting to the stand and nail on which the bellow will fix it. Establishment of the flame work on which the pals with the rope to pull the bellow was fixed. Weight and length of poles on which the rope to pull the bellow was attached were steps taken for experiment. So third experiment, when I was doing, I used the big bellow. It was giving a big impact of melting process. And as regarding the 2 years plays very important role. You see the red mark which circle. The 2 years 2 years is a material which not allows the backfire from the furnace to the bellows and same time to impact the wind. An observation of iron smelting process through experimental archaeology. There are a lot of things to discuss, but here I have kept it very major things to be discussed. The main aim to understand the experiment of iron smelting study is to understand the Asian technology. Through this experiment study, I could understand various aspects of iron smelting process. Overlapping of the furnace. So sometimes in archaeological material and archaeological things, we get 2, 3 furnaces at the same period and same place. So some excavator may put into this category of early historic iron age, but it cannot be like that. There will be a option of overlapping of. So this thing we could see in still now of ethnographic studies in village in Tamil Nadu. It's called Somimalai, which is Chola bronze. They have particular place which they do for casting of bronze. So they keep repeating the building the furnace. So when we dig of the place, it will be a lot of overlapping. So the same period they have done. It is not like that there is a different time period is done. So sometime it happens. So that thing I could understand through experimental archaeology. And structure of 2 years. 2 years plays very important role in all metal technology, even gold, copper, everything. Because this 2 years, it helps to safeguard the leather bellows. If the 2 year is not there, we need to fix the leather bellows near the furnace. If you fix the leather bellows near the furnace, there's a lot of chance to backfire and burn the leather bellows to avoid it. And charging of charcoal and ores, you need to have a proper interval of charging. We cannot charge the charcoal iron ore at one time, then it will be big problem. It will be choke of the furnace. And skill and labor requirement of iron smelting. We need a proper skill to do the iron smelting because we need to know when it has started to melt and what kind of flames it will come when we need to dispose the iron ore, when we need to remove the iron lump from the furnace. So that thing we need to very important. And time period of smelting process. So here is plays very important role. We need to know for 5 kg of iron ore, how long it can be taken. 3 hours, 5 hours, 10 hours. So we need to be very careful. And apart from that, little ahead, a comparative approach of archaeological aspects and experiment study. So we need to have a comparative understanding of two materials. The third experiment study of bone tool making techniques. Bone tools are made from an animal skeleton remains, are commonly found in archaeological sites. Bone tool making techniques we could see from Paleolithic period. This research is not to replicate a particular archaeological time span of bone tool making, is to understand the methods and techniques of bone tool making. The main aim is to understand the time or period of making bone tool, to understand which animal will be suitable to make a bone point, to uncover the methods and techniques of bone tools, to understand the micro research aspects of bone tool making. We have bone tool evidence from Rakigadi and Parmana, Kuntasi, and more Harappan sites in India. Apart from, we have bone tool evidence from South Indian context of Iron Age. Before making a bone tool, I have gone through few published papers and I have gone through few experimental archaeological conferences, education videos related to bone tool making. The first experiment of bone tool, the first experimental attempt to making a bone tool from a pig leg bone. Methods of making bone tool. Cleaning process, removing the muscles from the bone, boil the bone in hot water and it has dried in sun for at least a month. This process helps to remove the fat and bad smell of the bone. For experiment study, I have avoided using any modern tools to make a bone tool. For making a bone tool, first I have made stone flakes in different shapes to make a bone tool. The second phase experiment of bone tool. The second phase experiment attempt of making a bone tool from buffalo femur bone. Method of making bone tool. In this experimental work, I have taken a 2 sample of femur buffalo bone and buried them in the pit for almost 5 months from September 2020 to January 2021 to decompose. I have removed the bones and cleaned with the hot water and bones were dried in hot sun for a month. The one bone was half burned bone and another bone was sunburned. Working on the bone tool, rubbing the pattern in the base stone. Stone flakes used for making bone tool, base stone used for making a bone tool. The half-fired bone tool. So here we could see the half-fired bone tool is in a light brownish color, but in case of unfired bone tool is a pure white color. So it shows in archaeological assemblages, we get most of the bone tools are light brown color. So this indicates that our ancestor purposely they half fired the bone, which removes the fat and they made use of making a bone tool. So all archaeological assemblages of bone tools are brown in color, light brown color. So this indicates how the methods are used. The third experiment of bone tools with a goat leg bone. The leg bones were buried for 3 months and then it was removed and washed in the fresh water. As concerned to the goat bone is much easier to make a tool and also musical instruments such as flute. But in the tool of goat, in the bone of goat, it's very light thin. So it is not suitable for making a strong weapon than the buffalo bone. Observation of first experiment of making bone tool. The pig bone, especially what I have selected, was not good for making a bone tool like knife and arrow, but in case of making a small point is able to make. The center portion of this bone is light depth or we can say shallow in the shape. Through my experimental observation, it's not suitable for making a bone tool. Another reason, the bone contained lot of fat, which was almost disturbing to make a tool and very hard to make a tool. But same time, we need to look at the another aspects, long-term buried bone, etc. Observation of second experiment of making bone tool. I have observed many interesting aspects while during the bone tool experiment. As concerned to the buffalo, the femur bone is very suitable for making a bone tool. Here I have tried two different method of making a bone tool. One is half-fired bone and second is unfired bone. As concerned to the unfired bone, it is very hard to make the tool due to high fat content in bone and it takes quite lot of time to decompose. As concerned to half fired, it is very fine to work on tool, bone and quite easy to make a desired shape of the tool. The reason is the fat was buried completely, burned completely, and when we work on the bone, it's quite smooth. So what I'm saying here, our ancestor, they used a different method which we need to uncover through experiment archaeology. So experiment archaeology is a tool which we are going to uncover unknown things easily. So as concerned to bone tool, most of the excavators doesn't give that important aspect that it is just a recording. We have four bone tools, that's it. But nobody has taken an attempt to understand how it is made. So if we discuss with the bone tools, there's a simple method, take a bone, break into different pieces and make a sharp and use it. But why we are getting the tools which is very unique, very worked methods, especially if you see in the in Indian context, in Harappan culture period, we have bone tools, several bone tools, which is very worked bone tools. So we need to have a look into this, why this tool is made purposely. There should be a proper industry of bone tool making. It is not just like that they took the bone and break the bone and worked the bone. It is not like that. There are methods. So what I have found out the method, that is off fired. After off fired the bone, then they start to work as a tool. That is much easier. So one person can counter me, to hunt the animal, why need to be wait to this process? So to hunt the animal, it is a Paleolithic period. So that time there was not be much of methods of making a bone tool. But later period, when the culture form, as concerned to archaeological Harappan culture form, it is a proper industry method, which they used different methods to make a bone tool, not uh, immediately breaking the bone and using it. Has a system. So that system, it is only through experiment archaeology. From experiment archaeology, with the help of knowledge of experiment archaeology, I do on dissemination archaeology too. So regularly we have a pottery workshop in NIAS, my institution, National Institute of Advanced Studies. Regularly for PhD students who are doing humanities, we do regularly workshop on pottery making, from kneading the clay, preparing the clay, and firing the clay, and trying to understand about the clay process, ceramics, such things. And apart from my own institution, I do experiment archaeology workshops on pottery for different universities, IITs, and colleges, and mostly of the schools. My focus on to develop the experiment archaeology, to bring the awareness of Asian technology to the root of the children. So I prefer to do like workshops for school kids, especially on the government school kids. Then we do iron smelting process at our campus, and we go to different schools of regional of South India. We do iron smelting process to teach them how the chemical elements, chemical composition is forming. The students should get the basic knowledge of iron smelting process. Then every year we have workshops for National Museum in Delhi of lost arts method. So I am trained in last wax method traditionally. So I do workshops of last wax method. So we do workshops of school kids and college students, and especially for archaeology students, we do regular workshops for yearly 4 workshops we do in our campus and out of the campus. Then apart from the ethnoarchaeology studies, mostly my ethnoarchaeology studies oriented to the material which we use for which we use for the experimental archaeology, such like bellows, iron and copper and last wax method, zinc technology. So I do ethnoarchaeology to understand the experimental archaeology and archaeological data. And recently, we have a big collaboration with the Gaint University, which is studying about the Kotas community, tribal community in South India. So we are trying to understand pre-colonial archaeology of Nilgiris. It is the Nilgiris is a Western Ghats in India. So here we try to document the ancient stone circle. Apart from that, I was in charge for ethnoarchaeology, studies of crafts of tribal art like Todas. They are very good in making houses, and Kotas community is very good in excellent in a craft production of pottery and iron. Thank you so much. And I could give a great I could give a thanks to organizer of 14th Experimental Archaeology Conference. It's my pleasure to be in pleasure to be in this platform, and looking forward to work with you all. If any questions, please mail me. There's in website. My email ID is there. You can any time in Facebook. So please contact, and if you need any questions, please write to me in mail, or I am anytime I'm available to give the answer for everything. And here I didn't give I didn't put lot of data, which I have plenty of data. Like if you see pottery experiment, I have done almost 5 experiment of pottery, of black pottery, polished, burnishing, and iron smelting. I did a 6 iron smelting of duplicating of different types of in India. And bone tool, I have tried to make different types of bone tools. So at a short time, it's very difficult to bring all experiment to one place. So I given a brief introduction about my work of experimental archaeology. Please feel free to contact me, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you so much.